I used to joke that my marriage was so stable, it was boring. No drama, no jealousy, no late-night arguments about who left the lights on. Just peace, routine, and an endless cycle of inside jokes and half-finished TV shows. Emery and I were that couple who texted each other grocery lists with hearts and debated over which scented candle smelled less like disappointment. Life was good, predictable, comfortable. Then she joined this new circle of friends. They called themselves something ridiculous, like the Sisterhood of Self-Growth, which should have been my first red flag. From what I could tell, they spent their weekends drinking $8 lattes and diagnosing each other's relationships using Instagram reels and half-remembered psychology terms. At first, I thought it was cute. Emery was excited, full of energy. She started using new words like boundaries and emotional safety. I figured it was harmless, until every sentence I said started getting audited like a tax return. One night she looked at me and asked, "If a really attractive woman texted you out of nowhere, would you reply?" I laughed, thinking it was one of those hypothetical couple games. Only if she was asking whether we still had milk. Emery didn't laugh. She gave me that quiet nod that said, "Noted." Over the next few days, her tone changed. She'd throw these little tests into casual conversations. If your ex called, would you answer? If someone flirted with you, would you tell me? If you ever got tempted, would I even know? Each question came with that same look, the one that says the quiz is already graded and I just don't know my score yet. I brushed it off at first. Everyone gets weird advice from their friends sometimes. But then she said something that stuck with me. They say men create distance when they're hiding something. I remember blinking at her and replying, "Or when they're tired of being interrogated by people who don't even live here." She crossed her arms. "You're deflecting." I sighed. "No, I'm defending my right to breathe without an audience." That earned me another silent nod. The "I'll remember this for later" kind. A few days went by quietly. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message request on Instagram from an account I didn't recognize. No profile photo, just a blurry image of a coffee cup and the username @newmoon_something. The message said, "Hey," no capital letter, no context, just the kind of lowercase chaos that usually leads to trouble. I ignored it. Probably spam, or one of those crypto scams that starts with fake flirting. An hour later, another message appeared. "Are you busy?" That one made me pause. It felt human. But something about it was off. Too intentional. Too clean. Like it was trying too hard to sound casual. I still didn't answer. I made tea instead. Tea doesn't ask questions. That evening, while we were eating dinner, Emery asked if anything interesting had happened during my day. "Not unless you count renaming files for 3 hours," I said. She tilted her head. "No strange messages? No random girls?" I stared at her. Should I be expecting some? She shrugged, pretending to be casual, but her fork froze midair. That was my first real wait a minute moment. The next morning, another message popped up, different account this time. @softlinen_sky. Same lowercase greeting, "Hey." I didn't even open it. Blocked. Done. That evening, Emery said she felt like I'd been emotionally distant lately. I was literally holding her groceries in both arms when she said it. "Distant?" I grunted. "I'm 6 inches away and trying not to drop the eggs." She folded her arms. "You know what I mean." "I really don't," I said. "Unless eggs now count as emotional baggage." She rolled her eyes, which in our marriage was basically punctuation. By Saturday morning, the women's circle had clearly been hard at work. Emery came home glowing with the kind of certainty people usually get right before joining a pyramid scheme. She set down her bag and said, "We need to talk about trust. I was making pancakes." "Sure. Do you trust me not to burn these?" "I'm serious." "So am I. These pancakes are a matter of integrity." That joke landed like a brick. She didn't smile. While I flipped another one, my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. Local area code. Message, "Good morning." I froze. It wasn't Instagram this time. It was my actual number. "Who's that?" Emery asked. "Spam," I said quickly. "What kind of spam says good morning?" "The polite kind?" Her eyes narrowed. I showed her the screen, but she just stared at me, not the phone, like she was studying my face for guilt I didn't own. I blocked the number. I even deleted the whole conversation just to keep my sanity. That weekend, the house felt heavy. No fights, no yelling, just silence with bad intentions. We watched a nature documentary about lions hunting gazelles, and when the gazelle got caught, we both said, "Wow," at the same time. It felt metaphorical, and I hated that. Sunday morning brought another message, this time on Facebook Messenger, from a brand new profile with exactly 2 photos, a blurry beach and a shadow of someone in a hat. The message read, "I saw you at the cafe last week. You looked nice. Do you go there often?" Which was funny because I hadn't been to a cafe in weeks. Unless Home Depot counts. I didn't reply. But that night, Emery asked again, "Do you feel disconnected lately?" "No," I said. "Just confused about why you're suddenly treating me like a suspect." "Because you're acting weird." "I'm acting married." She didn't like that answer. By Monday, she stopped hiding the source of her paranoia. "My friends think you're probably talking to someone," she said over breakfast, as casually as if she were commenting on the weather. "Which friends?" I asked. "You don't know them." "That's convenient." She took a sip of her coffee like it was a mic drop. I looked at her across the table, and something in me shifted. I realized this wasn't just insecurity, it was a project. Her friends weren't gossiping. They were orchestrating something. That same day, I got another message. "At Linen and Salt." Hello again. I took screenshots this time, not because I planned to use them, but because something told me I'd need proof one day. That night, Emery went to bed early with a book about boundaries. I stayed up fixing the squeaky cabinet door because at least it didn't accuse me of emotional detachment. Before turning in, I looked at my phone one last time. A new email notification blinked at the top of the screen. Subject, "We should talk." No name, no signature, just a line that made my stomach tighten. "You're hard to reach, but I'm patient." The email sat in my inbox like a landmine. "You're hard to reach, but I'm patient." That was it. No name, no hint, no signature. For a solid minute, I just stared at it. Then I did the responsible adult thing. I closed my laptop and stared at the wall instead. Emery noticed something was off that morning. She always did. "You seem distracted," she said while pouring her coffee. "Yeah," I replied, trying to figure out how to unsubscribe from reality. She gave me the look, the one that says I'm collecting evidence. I told her someone had been messaging me, that I thought it was spam. I even showed her the screenshots, hoping to kill the tension once and for all, but she barely glanced at them and said, "That's convenient. You showing me only after deleting the rest, that one hurt." I hadn't deleted anything except what I thought was junk. But in her head, I was already guilty, not of cheating, but of existing suspiciously. She went to work, and I sat there at the kitchen table with my coffee going cold, realizing how absurd this had become. My wife thought I was flirting with air. I thought my wife was being brainwashed by women who used energy as a verb. That evening, Emery didn't speak much. She just scrolled her phone with that same tight expression, the one that means the group chat was busy. I pictured the conversation easily. "Girl, trust your gut. Men always hide something. Set a trap. If he passes, great. If not, you know." I could practically hear the sound of collective bad advice echoing over wine glasses. By Wednesday, the messages came daily. New accounts every time. All variations of the same theme. Minimal profile, lowercase greetings, vague compliments. One said, "I like your smile in your profile picture." My profile picture was me holding a fish from 2018. That should have been disqualifying. Another one said, "You looked good at the cafe." Still hadn't been to a cafe. I was starting to think I had a doppelganger who drank more espresso than I did. I finally showed one to my friend Mark from work. He's the kind of guy who wears hoodies to management meetings and somehow gets away with it. He looked at the messages and said, "Dude, that's bait." "Yeah, I know," I replied. "I'm just not sure who's holding the fishing rod." Mark grinned. "Probably your wife's friends." My ex tried that once. She made a fake profile to see if I'd flirt back. What happened? She forgot to log out before showing me her phone. That story gave me both hope and dread. That night, while Emery was in the shower, I sat on the couch with my laptop and started digging. I clicked on the mystery accounts. All of them had similar details. Same phrasing, same upload pattern, all created recently, and all using local time zones. Whoever was doing this wasn't far away. The more I looked, the clearer it got. This wasn't a random scammer. It was organized, and that meant someone close. The next day, Emery was all sweetness again. She made pancakes, kissed my cheek, and said, "You've been quiet lately." I smiled. "Just thinking." "About what?" "Who keeps texting me like we're in a low-budget spy movie?" She laughed, but there was tension behind it. "Maybe you have a secret admirer." "Yeah, that's what every married man wants. Unsolicited plot twists." Her eyes flicked up for a second, like she was trying to gauge if I'd said it jokingly or resentfully. I didn't clarify. Let her wonder for once. Later that afternoon, while she was out, I received another message, this time on WhatsApp. "You're a good listener, aren't you?" That one stopped me cold. I'd never shared my number publicly. No business page, no contact info, nothing. Whoever it was either had access to my wife's phone or my contacts. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back, "Depends who's talking." Then I waited. No reply for hours. When Emery came home, she seemed oddly cheerful. I asked how her day was. She shrugged. "Fine. We just talked about relationships. You know how couples sometimes lose spark and honesty." Spark and honesty. Right. It sounded like the circle had finished its group spell. That night, when she fell asleep, I went through the settings on my phone. I wanted to see if there were any shared devices on my WhatsApp. There weren't. But I noticed something else. One of the last messages from the mystery number had been sent just 5 minutes after Emery left the house earlier that day. Coincidence? Maybe. But the same thing had happened twice before. Every message came when she wasn't home. By now, paranoia had started to taste like caffeine. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark with my phone's glow lighting the room like a cheap horror movie. I scrolled through the accounts again. At new moon _ something. At soft linen _ sky. At linen and salt. All poetic, all feminine, all fake. And all of them had one strange thing in common. They followed the same 3 people. Emery, her friend Tessa, and a lifestyle blogger named Crystal Waves. Tessa. That name felt like the missing puzzle piece. She was the loudest of the group, the one who always said, if he's really loyal, he'll pass any test. I stared at her profile. It was full of motivational quotes that sounded like threats. Stuff like, if he flinches, he's hiding something. A loyal man isn't afraid to be tested. Right, because apparently healthy marriages now required exams. The next morning, I decided to play along. I waited until another message came. And sure enough, around 9:15 a.m., one appeared. "You seem kind." I liked that I took a deep breath and replied, "Thanks. Do I know you?" 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then appeared again. Whoever it was, they hesitated. Finally, "Not really. But I've seen you around." That was my cue. "Where?" "Online. You post nice things sometimes. I hadn't posted anything in weeks." I was officially in the twilight zone. I didn't answer again, just let it sit. When Emery came home that night, she seemed nervous. She kept glancing at me like she was waiting for me to say something, or maybe to fail some invisible test. At dinner, she asked, "Are you happy with us?" "Yeah," I said carefully. "Why wouldn't I be?" "I don't know. Sometimes I feel like you're somewhere else." "You mean emotionally or geographically?" She frowned. "See? You always joke. That's my coping mechanism." She sighed and looked away. "My friends say—" I cut her off. "Emery, if your friends jumped off a bridge, would you call it emotional growth or just cardio?" That earned me silence for the rest of the night, which honestly was a nice change. Still, something about that conversation nagged at me. She wanted me to slip up. Her friends wanted her to test me, and someone out there kept pretending to be interested in me just to see what I'd do. So, I decided to find out what they'd do when the test didn't go as planned. By the next morning, I was officially done being the clueless husband in someone else's social experiment. If they wanted a loyalty test, fine, I'd give them one. Just not the result they expected. The plan was simple. I'd answer the mystery account, play dumb, and see how deep the rabbit hole went. When the next message came, I was ready. "You have a calm energy." That's rare. That was already suspicious. Nobody who's ever seen me parallel park would describe me as calm. I typed back, "You sure you've got the right guy?" There was a pause. Then, "I think so." "You're the one with the dog, right?" "I don't have a dog. I don't even like small talk about dogs." I replied, "No dog. Just Bills." "Ha ha, I must have mixed you up. Still, you seem nice." It was such a weirdly safe answer, like it was written by a committee afraid of HR. That's when it clicked. They weren't trying to flirt. They were trying to bait me into flirting back. Every word felt like a breadcrumb leading to gotcha, so I decided to nudge back. "Thanks. My wife says I'm nice too, especially when I take out the trash." There was no reply for several minutes. Then, "She's lucky." I grinned. I keep telling her that. This time, the typing bubbles disappeared for good. I leaned back, satisfied. That was the most faithful cheating conversation in human history. But more importantly, I noticed something strange. The message had been sent at 10:42 a.m., the same minute Emery usually went on her mid-morning coffee break at work. Coincidence? Maybe. But the universe doesn't have that good a sense of humor. That evening, Emery came home looking strangely smug. She asked how my day was, and when I said quiet, she smirked. Just a flicker, but enough. Like she was waiting for me to say something incriminating. I didn't bite. I just smiled back. "You?" "Fine," she said. "We talked about honesty today." "How poetic." She tilted her head. "Do you think you're always honest with me?" "I try to be." "Try?" "Yeah, like when you ask if your jeans look good and I say yes, even though you already know they do." That almost cracked her poker face, but she caught it, forced a shrug, and said, "You're deflecting again." "No, sweetheart," I thought. "I'm diffusing." That night, I went into full detective mode. I checked the message metadata on my laptop, same IP region as ours. Then I used a simple trick Mark had told me. You can often see linked accounts or usernames reused elsewhere. I ran the username at Linen and Salt through a search tool. 2 matches popped up. One was the fake Instagram account. The other, a Pinterest board belonging to Tessa Carter. Bingo. The woman behind the loyalty test was exactly who I suspected. Emery's friend, the one who once said, "If you trust a man without testing him, you're basically asking to get hurt." I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. All that time, these women were busy scripting a soap opera in which I was the unwitting villain. So I screenshotted everything, usernames, timestamps, the overlap between accounts. Then I waited. The next day, around lunchtime, the mystery number texted again. "I hope I didn't scare you away." I replied, "Not at all. My wife thinks I'm boring, so this is the most excitement I've had in a week." That one I sent deliberately. I wanted to see if the trap would spring. 10 minutes later, Emery texted me from work. "Boring, huh?" I nearly choked on my sandwich. So the line wasn't just bait, it was bait with a delay. They were watching my responses in real time, meaning Tessa or one of the others was feeding screenshots straight to Emery. I stared at the phone, heart pounding. Then I texted back, "Depends who's asking." No answer. Not from her, not from the mystery number. Just silence. The loud, dangerous kind. When she got home that night, Emery was cold again. Not angry, not sad. Just distant in that way people are when they're already convinced they know the truth. We sat through dinner in silence. Halfway through, she said, "You've been acting strange lately." Define strange. Guarded. Secretive. I could say the same about you. She looked up, offended. What's that supposed to mean? It means the woman who used to tell me everything now talks like she's part of an undercover operation. She opened her mouth to reply, then shut it. I could practically see the debate in her eyes. Confess or double down? She doubled down. I just think you're hiding something. Maybe I'm hiding my patience. That one hit. Her jaw tightened. You're not taking this seriously. Emery, I said quietly, I'm taking it too seriously. That's the problem. We didn't talk for the rest of the night. After she fell asleep, I got up and finished collecting what I needed. Screenshots, crosslinks, timestamps. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity. I wanted the truth laid out so clearly even her circle couldn't spin it. The final confirmation came the next morning. Another message arrived, but this time, whoever was behind it slipped. You looked stressed yesterday. I hope she's not being too hard on you. That was the smoking gun. Nobody outside our marriage could have known that Emery and I had barely spoken the night before. I typed one line in reply. Hey Tessa, how's the loyalty experiment going? The message was read instantly, no reply. 5 minutes later, the account disappeared. Deleted. I laughed, a slow, disbelieving laugh that turned into a sigh. So that was it. Months of paranoia, all because a few bored women wanted to feel like detectives in their own reality show. When Emery came downstairs, I was calm, maybe too calm. She asked what was funny, and I said, just realizing how much trust costs these days. She frowned, but didn't ask. Not yet. That evening, I printed the screenshots, all of them, bound them neatly in a folder, not to gloat, just to have something physical when words inevitably failed. Then I cooked dinner, poured 2 glasses of wine, and waited for her to come home. It was time for grading day. When Emery came home, she smelled dinner before she saw me. The lights were dim, soft music played low. One of those bluesy playlists we used to cook to together. She paused in the doorway, surprised. You cooked? She said, hanging her purse on the chair. Figured we could talk over something that isn't passive-aggressive silence. I tried to smile. Her laugh was quick, nervous. Okay, that sounds serious. It is. I gestured for her to sit. The table looked normal, wine glasses, plates, napkins folded neatly, but in the middle sat a plain folder, beige, unassuming, deadly. We ate for a few minutes in silence. The clink of forks was louder than the music. She kept glancing at the folder the way a person looks at a ticking clock bomb, pretending it isn't there. Finally, she asked, "What's in it?" "Something I wish didn't exist," I said. I pushed the folder toward her. She hesitated, then opened it. The first page was a screenshot, an Instagram message from one of the fake profiles, then another, then another. The timestamps, usernames, IP matches, all printed in careful order. Her smile vanished. She flipped another page, slower this time. "Where did you get these?" she whispered. "The same place you got your ideas," I said. "The internet." Her lips parted like she was about to speak, but nothing came out. I leaned back, watching the realization crawl across her face. It wasn't guilt at first. It was shock. Shock that I'd caught her, that the plan had a paper trail. "I don't understand," she said finally. How did you find all this? Because you underestimated me, I said quietly. And because your friend Tessa isn't half as clever as she thinks. Her hand froze mid-page. Tessa? Yeah, the Pinterest account, the reused email handle, the same phrasing she uses when she texts you. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Emery looked pale. It wasn't supposed to go that far. What was it supposed to be, I asked. A social experiment? A fun little loyalty test to share over brunch? She winced. It was a mistake. No, I said. It was a project. You all built it together. You picked a target, made fake accounts, and waited for me to slip up. You wanted proof I was like every other guy you complain about over wine. Her voice shook. That's not fair. They said. I know what they said. My tone sharpened. They told you to test me. To see if I'd talk back. To trust your gut, remember? How'd that work out? She dropped her gaze, staring at her hands. I just wanted to know if I could still trust you. I almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. And now? Her voice cracked. Now I don't even trust myself. For a second, neither of us spoke. The sound of the clock in the kitchen filled the room, steady, unfeeling. I took a sip of wine, though my throat was dry. You know what's crazy? You actually got what you wanted. Proof. You tested my loyalty, and I passed, with flying colors. But the exam ruined the relationship. She looked up, eyes glossy. I didn't mean to hurt you. I believe that, I said. You didn't mean to, but you still did. Emery reached across the table. Her hand hovered over mine, fingers trembling. Please don't leave. It was stupid. I was scared I didn't move. Scared of what? That your marriage was too peaceful? That trust felt boring? She bit her lip. Of losing you. I looked at her, really looked. The woman sitting across from me wasn't cruel, just lost. But that didn't make it easier. Then congratulations, I said softly. You built the very thing you feared. Her tears finally spilled, silent and raw. It was supposed to be harmless. Emery, there's nothing harmless about trying to make someone fail, she tried to explain. Something about her friends, about how everyone said men always hide something, how they convinced her to be smart, to be careful. I listened, but the words sounded distant, like a story told underwater. I thought you'd fail the test, she whispered at last. I nodded slowly. Then you should have made it harder. That earned a tiny broken laugh through her tears. I stood, took my jacket from the chair. The motion startled her. Where are you going? For air. Please don't go. Not like this. I looked at the table, the folder, the woman who used to trust me with her whole heart. I'm not angry, I said, just empty. You spent so much time proving I might betray you, you never noticed I was the one being betrayed. She stepped forward, but I was already near the door. Is this it? She asked quietly. I don't know, I admitted. But right now, I can't stay where love feels like surveillance. I opened the door. The hallway light spilled in, cold and sterile. Behind me, her voice came small, almost a whisper. You're right. I ruined it. I turned slightly. No, you outsourced it. And then I left. The night air hit like truth, sharp, honest, unfiltered. I walked without direction, hands in pockets, listening to the hum of the city. For the first time in weeks, there was no buzzing phone, no invisible test. Just silence. And I realized that silence, the kind I'd been accused of for months, had never been the enemy. It was peace, the real kind. I spent the night at Mark's place. He didn't ask questions, didn't pry. He just handed me a beer and turned on the game. That's why I liked him. No psychology degree, no spiritual podcast recommendations, no trust your gut nonsense. Just a guy who understood silence. Halfway through the game, he glanced at me. So, loyalty test, huh? Yeah, he winced. Oof. Classic. Apparently it's trending, I muttered. Ruining relationships for sport. He raised his beer. Congrats, man. You passed a test you never signed up for. I smirked, but it didn't reach my eyes. Yeah, feels great I didn't sleep much. The couch was comfortable enough, but my brain wouldn't shut off. I kept replaying everything. The first weird message, the slow tension, the look on Emery's face when she realized I knew. The kind of realization that doesn't just change the room. It changes the shape of everything after. The next morning, my phone was full of missed calls and texts. Emery, please come home. We need to talk. I told them everything. I ended it. I'm sorry. Then one more. I hate what they turned me into. That one hit different. Because I knew it wasn't just guilt. It was the quiet beginning of understanding. The part where the noise dies down and the regret starts to echo. Still, I didn't go home. Not that day. 2 days later, she stopped texting. I didn't block her. I just didn't reply. I needed the silence to breathe. Mark said I should talk to her. I told him I would, eventually, when I wasn't still standing in the debris of everything we'd built. A week passed before I went back. The house felt smaller. Not physically, just smaller in energy. The walls held too many echoes. Emery was sitting on the couch in a sweatshirt, no makeup, red eyes. The confident, self-assured woman who used to lecture me about emotional maturity looked more like someone who'd been hit by her own advice. Hey, I said. She stood, but didn't move closer. You came. For the rest of my stuff, I said quietly. Her eyes glistened, but she nodded. Okay. We stood there, facing each other like two people who remembered love but couldn't find the map back to it. I told them, she said finally. I told Tessa and the others that what we did was disgusting. And? They said I'm overreacting. That I should be grateful you didn't take the bait. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Of course they did. The Committee of Emotional Terrorism never admits defeat. She winced. I blocked them. All of them. Good start, I said. I don't blame you for hating me. I don't, I said truthfully. I just don't recognize you right now. Tears slid down her cheeks. You used to say we could talk about anything. And we could, I said, until you started talking to me through strangers on the internet. Her hands trembled. I wanted to protect myself. From what? I asked. A marriage without drama? That broke her. She covered her face, shoulders shaking, whispering something about how it was supposed to be harmless, how she never thought I'd find out, how she just wanted reassurance. The thing about apologies is that sometimes they come too late for repair. You can forgive a moment, but not the mindset that created it. I sat down, suddenly exhausted. Do you even understand what this did to me? I spent weeks feeling crazy, wondering if I was paranoid or if my marriage was quietly dying behind my back. She nodded through tears. I know. And you let me doubt myself, I said. You watched me twist and you called it trust work. She sank onto the opposite end of the couch. I thought if you passed the test, I'd feel safe again. I looked at her for a long time. You don't feel safe by testing people. You feel safe by knowing who they are. You already knew me, Emery. You just stopped believing it. She didn't answer. She just cried silently, the way people do when there's nothing left to defend. After a while, I stood up. I'll stay with Mark for a while. You need space to figure out why trust feels like a challenge instead of a choice. She nodded weakly. Will you ever come back? I don't know, I said. I still love you, but I can't live in a courtroom. I picked up my bag. She didn't try to stop me this time. As I walked out, she whispered, They told me to test you, but they never told me what to do if I failed. I paused at the door. That's the thing about tests, I said softly. You don't always get a retake. Outside, the sky was pale gray. That kind of empty color that feels like a reset. I drove for a while with no destination, the radio low, mind quiet for the first time in weeks. Somewhere between the hum of the tires and the sound of the wind, I realized the strangest part. I wasn't angry anymore, just disappointed that something so good could be dismantled by a few whispers from people who'd never cared whether we survived or not. It's been 6 months since that night. Long enough for emotions to settle, long enough for clarity to stop feeling like shock. I filed for divorce in April. No screaming, no drama, just paperwork. Cold, precise, honest. Emery didn't fight it. She cried when she signed, said she understood. There was no big speech, no begging scene, just quiet acceptance, like two people watching the last flame of something beautiful go out and knowing there's no point trying to relight wet ashes. I won't lie, I still think about her sometimes. The early mornings with coffee and music, her laughter when she burned pancakes, the way she'd grab my arm in crowded places. It's strange how betrayal doesn't erase the good memories. It just stains them like wine on a white shirt. You can still see the pattern, but it'll never be the same. After the divorce, I found out more about the circle. Turns out, the sisterhood of trust awareness didn't age well. Tessa, the mastermind, broke up with her boyfriend 2 months later. Apparently, he caught her checking his phone every morning, and when he called her out, she said, "You made me insecure." He moved out that same week. As for Emery, she moved to another apartment across town. She's in therapy, and from what mutual friends say, she's calmer now, less defensive. Maybe she's learning the difference between trusting someone and controlling them. She emailed me once, not to ask for another chance, just to say thank you. She wrote that the divorce forced her to face the kind of fear she used to hide behind advice from people who didn't know what love looked like. I didn't reply. Not because I'm bitter, but because closure doesn't always need an echo. I've learned something too. Trust isn't a test you give someone. It's a gift you risk losing. The moment you try to measure it, you've already broken it. And some things, once broken, don't belong in repair shops. They belong in lessons. So yeah, I passed her test. But I failed the marriage. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I stayed too long trying to prove I wasn't. If anyone asks how it ended, I tell them this. My wife tested my loyalty. I tested her trust. Neither of us passed. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.